First, I have to call the meeting to order at 6:34 on the 12th of May. And the first order of business is approving the minutes from May 1st.
I vote to approve the May 1st minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. All right, we're gonna move into,
The minutes too.
pardon?
The minutes as well.
There's a second set.
Is it May 6th?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
we sent those out.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve the May 6th minutes?
I make a motion to approve the May 6th minutes. Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye, motion carries.
I'll volunteer.
Yeah, and Alan has abstained, because he wasn't there. All right, now, we're gonna move, since our friends at Weston and Sampson, are joining us. I think it would, how much do you know about how we've gotten to where we are, or would that be a useful thing for us to summarize?
Yeah, that would be useful. That would definitely help, yeah.
So, a small group of us started about 6 months ago, based on your report and also the other two reports that were done, to begin to look at putting a wastewater treatment plant in Southborough. Our principal goal is to improve the business climate, and particularly along Route 9, so that we can attract more commercial and industrial development to ease the residential tax burden. It's probably a story you've heard before. And we have we've talked to Framingham about connecting into the NWRA. That turns out, looks like it would be quite difficult. We've attempted to talk to Westboro about connecting into their system. They're at capacity, so that seems unlikely. We've been investigating. We've talked to the DEP. We've talked to one or two other engineering firms, and we have gotten to the point where we recognize that, you know, what we're going to have to build if we do this is a ground discharge system. That surface discharge just isn't in the cards anymore, and that, you know, we're looking for something on the order of 500,000 gallons a day, or something that would ultimately peak out, you know, in the 500,000, 750,000 gallons per day range. We've identified a couple of potential sites. Particularly, the biggest challenge for us is probably to find the disposal site, you know, which is going to involve acres. We have looked at the space between the lanes in 495 as it crosses Route 9, which is 495 divides around a small hill. So there's actually something like 30 acres of land in there that, at least if you look at the USDA soils map, doesn't immediately reject itself. We've also had a preliminary discussion with the Conservation Commission about potentially using our golf course as a disposal site. And we got lots of questions about how you go about doing that, because we're babes in the woods, and that's why we got you guys on board. We are in the process. We are in the process of trying to applying for grants to help us move two things along. The first thing would be to get enough money to sort of begin to do very, very preliminary design and soil testing in whatever site we come up with. And the other one, the second grant, is to actually build a facility to serve what has been our traditional downtown area, which is along Route 30 and just east of where 85 crosses 30. And that's traditionally known as downtown, although it doesn't look much like a downtown anymore. And we're going to have, I think, more discussions about that as we go along. And, you know, what we need help with, and what we put out in the RFP, is we need sort of technical help responding to the components of the one-stop grants, the Massachusetts program for providing funds for infrastructure development. And so that's where we are. We've done a fair amount of homework. Anybody else got anything else to add to that?
I think it's the Lombardi report.
Yeah.
Is that something we can share with?
Oh, yeah, it's a public document.
Yeah. Oh, you already have the Lombardi?
Yeah.
Because
We
that seemed
do.
to like at least get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
As the scope of the thing. Okay.
I have one question. I know that open water discharge is really, really challenging. And we've kind of like just almost categorically excluded it, but in your sort of in your expertise and what you guys do day in, day out, is that truly just really a shot in the dark to even try to even consider pursuing? Or is groundwater discharge really our only avenue here?
That is the case nowadays. Yeah, the groundwater discharge is all that you're getting.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to
Yeah.
hear from professionals that it's not even worth considering. So, okay, thank you.
Which is what DEP told us as well, actually,
Yeah.
very clearly, so. good to
Yeah.
confirm that.
Yeah.
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 I've actually neglected my host duties. We're gonna go around the room and just introduce ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm Al Hamilton. I'm a member of the select board. And I'm the chair of the committee largely because nobody else wanted to do it. And I have no particular expertise here, although my expertise is in getting things through town meeting.
Or not.
Or not. Well,
I'm Sam Stivers, also on the select board. I'm Bob Moss, a retired real estate developer. Did a lot of work over 37 years in Metro West. And I happen to have built one of the very few wastewater treatment plants in Southborough on an apartment complex.
I'm Claire Reynolds. I have worked with Western and Sampson with the two grants that you folks wrote. One was the wastewater feasibility study for the downtown area with Chris Perkins and Rob Mushi. And then the other one was the Route 9 feasibility study with Rob and, my apologies, I can't remember the name of the other guy who I worked with, but
That's all right. Yeah. Okay.
And I'm Alan Dolniak. I'm also a member of the committee, a Southborough resident and a recovering former civil engineer. So mostly traffic and transportation, not so much civil, but I still do carry my PE in Massachusetts.
And we have one other member, Brian Shea, who's not with us tonight. And he's also a civil engineer, and he actually does do wastewater stuff as well. So then, Bill, but I'll let Bill introduce himself.
Bill Cundiff, DPW Director.
All right.
Uh,
All right. Is that everybody? So I'm Steve Peterson with Weston and Sampson Engineers. And Anna
Yes,
is
I'm
with me.
Anna Wojcik from Weston and Sampson.
And Anna, if you can share, so we had jotted down some talking points to kind of walk through.
It says the host has disabled participant screen sharing.
1 second.
Well,
Okay, try again.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Great.
So I'll just do a quick overview and I'll let Anna kind of walk through the bullets and we can kind of have maybe an interactive discussion about some of the information that would need to be gathered. So for our scope, the project that we're working on, we first want to just make sure we, discuss and confirm the project objectives. And that's kind of what you just outlined. I think the biggest, the objective is to submit the one-stop grant application or applications. And that's what we've been brought on board to assist with, to work hand in hand with the town and get this application, help you guys get this application in. So we do need to know who the primary points of contact are. On our end, Anna will be doing most of the legwork. She's done a couple of these MassWorks applications in the last couple of rounds. So she can certainly provide as much help as she needs. And then we need to know from your end, who is gonna be the primary point of contact. You know, one of the key things is in the application, Anna, you would tell me, is the organization CEO is what they
Yes.
call it. That's the official term for whoever's in charge from the town. So is this, maybe we could talk about that a little bit, like how do you envision putting the application together? Who's the point person on the town's end?
We used previously, Claire, has that been Vanessa?
She does the IGX system.
She does the submission.
Who have we listed as CEO historically?
I think the CEO would probably be the select board, you know. So that is, we would have to have a letter of.
In the past,
So we listed-
Mark had, with the two that I worked with, Mark
Mark,
put himself,
yeah, so let's
the,
keep Mark then. Mark in purple, our town administrator, has been the
Yeah.
one we've listed previously. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't continue to list him. Does anybody disagree?
That makes
I
sense.
don't know if they're looking
That's
for like
cool.
a,
That's who we've
Yeah.
used on our other ones, is typically the town manager, town administrator, or
Yeah.
DPW director, depending on the setup of the community. So that's probably the right person.
Okay,
Um,
all right, so I'll take the action item to let Mark know that he's the CEO.
He's been elected.
Yeah. Well, he's in here, so,
Excellent. Nominated, seconded, and unanimous.
yeah,
That works. So item 3 on that list there, discuss so you guys submitted expressions of interest. We've seen the feedback that you received. We haven't seen the actual expressions that were submitted. So we'll want to at least chat with whoever put that information together and see that information that's already been submitted.
Is Claire the right point to?
Yeah.
Coordinate that? I mean, we've
I
got
can provide- yeah.
we
I
got
can-
a-
Stuff that was sent to Al,
yeah.
and yeah, I can.
Claire has served to collect a lot of this stuff and has been
Yeah.
involved with the applications longer than the rest of us, so she's a natural contact point for that.
So, and what is Claire's title? Who is she?
I don't have a title.
She's a
committee member.
All right.
I'm a wastewater committee member, resident. I've
Excellent.
written a couple grants for the town. Project
Excellent.
managed those grants, and they were I project managed the 2 wastewater grants that you folks did.
Excellent. All right. So I think,
Also
yeah, so I think Anna will work closely
workforce.
with you
Yeah.
to pull this information together. So that's perfect.
Yeah, of course.
If her email's not there, it's creynolds@southboroughma.com.
You got that, Anna?
Yes, thank you.
All right. So one thing that we'll get into as Anna goes through the bullets is kind of, we use the term carve up the application. You know, there's a lot of stuff that we have no idea that we'll need you guys, you know, the town needs to compile the information. And then what are the things that, you know, that you need us to develop. So we'll figure all that out. And then as far as the schedule, we're on a short time frame.
Yes,
Applications are due, and I know it was discussed trying to wrap this up in a couple of weeks, is what I saw in emails, and we acknowledged that we could do that. As long as we get the support back and forth, you know, we can put the time in, and if we get the information we need, we can get through this in a couple of weeks. Would be the goal.
Yep.
And I think maybe I think I'll hand it over to Anna and let you go through the poll. So what Anna did is she ran through the entire application, right, Anna, and kind of just pulled out the pieces for quick discussion. So let's do that.
Great. Yeah. So I'll just quickly go through just the different sections of the application and see if we can, if we have the answers already, or we can discuss how we would get the answers in the future. The first thing is MassWorks asks for is if the town has any restrictive bylaws, that would be phased growth zoning, if there's a sewer moratorium. Do you guys know if the town of Southborough has one of these?
None.
no,
Yeah, none of that. Hey, Claire, did you not fill out part of this to begin with?
Excuse me?
Didn't you fill out an application with the stuff, the boilerplate kind of stuff?
Yeah, this is coming right off of the one-stop grant application, correct, Anna?
Yes.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, so
So
Claire
we
worked
haven't seen
through-
it filled out though. Yeah, we
Yeah,
don't, we
Claire,
haven't seen the
Claire worked
town.
through one of it.
so I actually put together, it's just a draft. I
Okay.
don't know whether it's really ready for prime time, but for tonight. But
No, that's fine.
essentially, there's sections that pertain to things that Weston and Sampson could answer from the technical standpoint. The other part is stuff that I kind of just put together. Who within our town is responsible for those things? Some of those questions, in terms of, are we this kind of a designated community, et cetera, are just really need to be double checked with the planning board and that kind of thing. And, you know, the contact on the Southborough end can certainly work with you on that part, because, unless you typically do that. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, but it seems to me to be helpful, Claire, if you sent what you did to the Weston and Sampson folks as a sort of a
Right,
check
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah,
And my sense was that there's a lot of boilerplate. There's
yes,
stuff that we don't know. To me, the real gap that we have is coming up with a story about the impact, particularly things like jobs creation and so forth, that I think is going to be challenging to get much real hard data on. But I think we could, again, make some interesting projects with that kind of stuff. And anything that that you folks, Steve and Anna, could suggest in terms of how we can complete those questions effectively would be very helpful, because that was the place where I was most puzzled as to, you know, how we paint a good picture for those things. But again, a lot of the boilerplate Claire has done, so I don't, maybe we can talk through quickly. And Claire, if you've done it, just
yeah,
indicate to Anna that
give
you
me a
have it,
couple
and we
minutes,
can keep
talk about
moving.
something else, and I'll be able to bring it up if you do wanna.
Well,
take
as long as you could
feedback.
share it with us. We don't need the answers. We just need to know who's gonna get them for us.
Yeah, just send it. to
Everyone
us.
Yeah, I think Anna's point is just to go through the things that we're
Yeah.
gonna talk about, not the responses to them.
And we
Yeah.
can say, yep, we've done that, we know that, and you'll get that. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, if you could send that over when you get the chance, that would be great. So the next section is about any community development tools, just kind of checking a box on the application. If your community has designated any of these, has that already been done?
I'm not aware of that where we've applied for any of those.
I should follow up with Vanessa and Mark on those.
That's
I think we probably make it clear to you, just so you know, that Southborough's kind of like this sleepy town, little town in the middle of all, you know, all these other towns maybe around that are doing a lot of stuff. So one of our challenges here is to make our application look presentable to whoever reviews it, that we, you know, we're as interested in their help as everybody else. But we're probably gonna be lacking a little bit on, you know, like, let's say an adoption of a clean energy program. I don't think we probably have that. I don't think we've done any of these things.
Yeah.
We can double check with others. Yeah.
Okay,
That's all,
that's
yeah,
okay.
that's all, that's what we need. We just need to
Yep.
know.
We hope they're not all
Check the box and-
deal breakers, you know. We
Yeah.
are compliant MBTA. We did pass that.
All right.
So we're set with
Yes,
that.
that's great. That was the next thing. And then based on the mapping that I found online, that Southborough is not a housing choice community.
Correct.
So the following big sections at the beginning is a short project abstract where you really just describe what the main purpose is of the project and what you're asking for the grant. Then a project narrative will be more specific about looking for design money for either sewers or doing the soil exploration that you were talking about. We'll talk about that in that section. And then scope of work will go a little bit more deeper into the different engineering tasks that we'll go throughout design. So for the scope of work, the biggest question I had was for specifically the Route 9 corridor. I looked through a few of the reports and saw there are basically 3 sections throughout Route 9 that have been split up through both the Weston and Sampson report and the Lombardo report. Are you looking to make an application for all phases of this project, or are you looking to do maybe a phased approach for the 3 different sections?
We're looking, I think, to do all of the Route 9 corridor, which would also include the industrially zoned areas at the west end, which currently known as sort of the EMC site. So it's about 150 acres on the western edge of Route 9, south of Route 9.
And there's a residential part of that. It's at the southern end of that property that is still up for sale, not clear what's going to happen to that. So there is some possibility that that could be rezoned for commercial purposes, depending on who buys that and what they want to do with it. But currently it's residential.
I'll add one thing too, is that I think long-term, it is desirable to have all of Route 9 ready for wastewater. But in terms of the question here about the phase approach, I'd say maybe we're interested in moving forward with whatever has the best chance of success. So if we actually have to kind of split this up, and we think if you guys in your professional guidance say you'd be better served to look for phases 1 and 2 and not 3, because we think you'll get that, great, let's do that. So but again, long term is all of it, but we're also looking to your guidance as to what's going to give us the best chance of success here.
Okay.
One other thing I'd throw into the pot here that we've talked about a regional approach to this. Turns out Westboro, as I think Al mentioned, is at their capacity limit for wastewater at this point. They're looking for other ways to develop more capacity, and they're having trouble, as we understand it, from DEP getting permit to expand their plant. Marlboro is also looking for additional capacity. Westboro, as you may know, provides service for Shrewsbury and part of Hopkinton as well. Marlboro provides service for Northborough as well. And so there potentially could be a play that says we want to find a way to build a bigger plant and include all of these communities. And we've been told that a regional grant is a more effective way to approach it. We've also been told, you guys know better than I do, that a bigger plant is more economically cost effective. So more volume, more cost effective in terms of plant size. So, I mean, that's a big ask at this point because we have no commitment from anybody.
Right.
On the other hand, the need is so active. And if that's something that could be interesting to people, then that, is something that we ought to think about, but that's unlikely we get that at first. I will say that, to back up a second, Al mentioned the property between lanes on 495, just north of Route 9. There's a radio transmission tower up there. I happen to be on a board with a guy who's in charge of highway operations for MassDOT, and I've been talking to him about this. And he has made some inquiries. And I talked to him the other day, and he said, "Sam, the answer is not no, but it is a heavy lift." And he's been talking to the MassDOT real estate guys who actually have a business of leasing their real estate to generate revenue for MassDOT. And he said that you need to think about ways to make the deal more attractive for MassDOT. One of those ways is a regional play. He said that MassDOT actually responds to legislative pressure. So if you've got 3 or 4 or 5 legislators calling the secretary of whatever and saying, "I'd like to have this happen," he said, "I've seen that be effective in terms of creating multi-community pressure there." So who knows where that might go, but at least he was trying to be helpful, and that seems to me to be a good angle. On the other hand, can't believe we're going to get support for a regional grant at this point, given that we don't have commitment from these other guys. But just so you're aware that that's been discussed, and there may be some distant hope for that.
I mean, part of and the grant is not for, I mean, we're not near construction at this point. We're looking for
Sure.
money to
Absolutely.
further the design, gather more information. Part of it there could be scope items for regional collaboration
Sure.
if we feel like that's a good selling point that aligns nice with the goals of of MassWorks. So it's worth considering. It could be a scope item,
We look to you for advice in terms of how to use that or not, as the case may be.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Sorry, Anna, so excuse me for interrupting there, but let's keep going.
so that brings us into anticipated outcomes, which really goes hand in hand with the project impacts table and looking at the proposed new housing units, specifically how many new jobs and the commercial square footage. So as you kind of discussed earlier, that's what you are looking for assistance with. Are you aware of any possible proposed developments happening in either the Route 9 area or the downtown area?
We know that, there is some move afoot in the area of the EMC property that it's changing hands. And, that the new owners are clearly didn't buy it to sit on it.
We've talked with them, but there's no specific plan at this point, but they are big time players and could put in something significant there. We also could project in a variety of ways to say we have so many acres of property that's developable on there. Alice looked at the parcels there and says that there's over 150 acres of undeveloped or underdeveloped property with frontage on Route 9. So you could actually make some projections around that in terms of what we could do with those kinds of properties. But there's nothing firm there. But if it would be useful to come up with a high level projection kind of view of the world there, we could certainly do something like that and talk about here's what the current employment is along there. And so if you double or triple density, here's what you get in terms of jobs potentially there. The other factor is hopefully this, as part of doing the sewer expansion to develop the bigger tax base, the town will revise and make a corridor on Route 9, revise the zoning to allow more intensive uses, and different uses. So a thing that's right now, let's say a 6-acre flat piece with a nursery on it, could be 88 condo units if the appropriate zoning is. So the goal, I think, for us would be to try to get new zoning in place to support the costs of all this infrastructure to the town, but also very much so to generate, maybe a 2 or 3-fold increase in tax base along Route 9 or 4 or whatever.
And we've talked with representatives of the planning board about that, and they seem to be generally supportive of the concept, although we don't have any rezoning proposals on the table at this point.
Yeah, so I did I went through all of the property that fronts on Route 9, then categorized it as either undeveloped, underdeveloped, or fully developed. And we have about 160 acres of undeveloped or underdeveloped land. That underdeveloped land has assessed values that average about $250,000 an acre versus the developed land, which has assessed values at around $1.2 million an acre. So there is, if you've got sort of figures of merit of, what the economic impact of that is, that was my very rainy Sunday afternoon activity. And I don't know whether that's the sort of thing that would feed into sort of anticipated outcomes.
Well, question, Ann, for this purpose of this application within the next few weeks, are they looking for all that really, like you say you have X number of developable acres. These are potential things with some zoning tweaking or changing, and that we could increase. We could add 3 million square foot of office buildings. We could add 320 housing units. Are they looking for all that now?
Yes, so I can bring this over. So this is what the project impacts table looks like. And it is looking for specific numbers of housing, jobs, commercial space that is currently being hindered by inadequate infrastructure. So not having sewer is preventing all this development from happening, and they're looking for specific numbers for each category.
how much background do you need for that? I mean, I can take this stuff and make up something that I think is very plausible.
I could do that
Bob
with
would
you.
do this,
I would be
all of
happy
us
to do
could,
that.
yeah. But, how
Yeah,
much backup? What's proof do you need in any of this for the application, this question?
How does anyone have proof?
that's,
Yeah,
yeah,
but-
it's whatever, it's tell the right story, you know?
Yeah.
That- that
All right, we
really
got
what
it.
We
is.
got
Some people
great
have a ton of
storytellers
backup.
No, this is not,
We could do a 2-hour down at the table,
yeah.
crank this out.
Yeah, so if
I
we can get some
think
help
that's
on
right.
that information, that'd be good.
I mean, this seems to me to be sort of the guts of it. Is that a fair assessment? I mean, this is, what's gonna sell it or not, I would think,
Yes,
primarily,
this
unless
is the
there's a
narrative.
deal
This
killer
is-
somewhere else.
This is the art, not the science.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
why, yeah. Yeah, why do you need the infrastructure? Why should we give you the money? Again, and they're all about housing and jobs, so.
Maybe what we ought to
In
do,
some ways, I think we got an advantage from the surrounding communities that Bob suggested. I mean, we're behind, but it means that we've got more opportunity, more upside because we're not developed.
Yes,
And as Al is fond of saying, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but if you drive west on Route 9 from Boston, we're the first town you get to that doesn't have a municipal sewer system. You got to go another 60 some odd miles to Goshen, Massachusetts, till you find another town that doesn't have a municipal sewer system along Route 9. So I think the issue for us is that we've got a huge upside here. And how do we quantify it?
it's a good comment to put in the narrative somewhere.
Yeah.
yeah, it seems like, that narrative is sort of, is an addendum, to, see. What I would suggest
Yeah, nothing
is
to lose.
that maybe, we task Sam and Bob to sit down and see if you can.
Create.
We could do that section, yeah.
And I've got a question for you, and also you, Steve. On that form, it says, units that are owned and units that are rented, and there's also a part to, I think. Talks about, I'm not sure if it's retail or commercial space or something like that. Is it, or where, I'm sorry, where it says jobs, is it permissible to talk about two different development envelopes? Like if we were to say, of all the available frontage on Route 9, if we considered housing only, we would expect X, Y, Z. If we were to consider retail or commercial only, we could expect A, B, C. And almost present this as a range, because like Bob was just saying a moment ago, or Sam was like, we have fertile ground here because we have almost nothing. And so I was wondering, is it, or do you have to kind of pick a specific development mix and put that down?
I think you just have to explain what you put in, and
Okay.
if, I think what you're saying is something you can do, you're just making it clear that it's not all of both of these, but it could, it's some portion of each of these.
Yes, okay, thank you.
You guys see far more of this than I do, certainly, but I mean, there's value sometimes in looking at what's sold in the past. If you look at the projects that have been supported over the last few years, are they
Yeah.
compelled by, manufacturing or retail or housing or you name it, warehouse space, whatever? What seems to be attractive to the folks who make these decisions? Is there any information there we can glean to help us aim in the right direction?
I mean, we've had success with housing, on the specific projects that we've done. And it was, high density, you had a developer that wanted to come in to an area that was the best place in town for that type of housing. The town needs the housing. They can't do it with the infrastructure that they have. So housing has gotten us grants, but I mean, if you have a good case for jobs, I mean, it's the two of them. I mean,
Well, I mean,
it's
we could say housing, and housing clearly is something the governor's office supports. So, I mean, we could pitch the housing thing, but of course, when you actually do it, you're not
yeah.
bound to that forever, certainly, if something else develops.
I mean, is there
One
anything in the master planning that the planning department has done that talks about, that, the importance of that area from an economic perspective? That the infrastructure is lacking, that's a lot of times you'll see
It's-
that.
It's mentioned, we should probably get,
Not so specifically. I was involved in the master planning process, and sadly, this was not really so much of a focus. This was about 5 years ago now, basically. But we could probably pull things out of the master plan to reinforce some of this, certainly.
can we
Yeah,
make sure
that
we
would
get a
be-
copy of the master plan?
But yeah, so
It is right above 2.9. I guess, Anna, you're controlling this. Do we have a 1,000-word box above there to do some generic discussion?
Yes, talks
Okay.
about the anticipated outcome sections right
The
above it.
1,000-character box. Is that a rigid 1,000-character? That's it?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah,
exciting one?
through the
I
IGN
think what you
system.
do
That
is
counts
you
spaces.
Okay.
point to a document.
online.
that's- Yeah,
Okay.
And I was actually gonna say on your outline, if it's possible, next to each item, if there are limits, character limits or things like that, if you could just put that
Add
in
them,
parentheses. Yeah, just so and then send over the annotated outline when you're done. It's a great outline, just so we kind of know what we're up against. We know
Yeah.
what sort of wiggle room we have and don't have.
and before I forget it, I've got the master plan that I can send you guys. If you would send me contact information, I'm S Stivers, STIVERS at southboroughma.com. Ship you guys the master plan.
And I actually I'm looking at an Excel spreadsheet that I put together, and what it does is it has each one of the sections numbered, the 2.8, the 2.9. And then I have another column in terms of who I initially thought it should be assigned to. And then, obviously tracking the completion status and notes as far as where that information, may exist. My question is just taking a look at what's there. Something like 2.9. That's something in my mind that Weston and Sampson can't answer. Is that, are we in
That's what
agreement
Sam
on
and
that?
I agree.
And that's what you're gonna,
Yeah, we're
that's what
gonna
you're
do
gonna do. Okay,
And
so
we're-
then that leads me to the next question that I have is, I don't know if you have done any of these specific one-stop grants previously, but some of it is, that all of the dialogue boxes, so to speak, sections you see there, 2.8. The max character limit that you have is 2,000 characters. And
Says 1,000.
just so that you know, what?
Says 1,000.
No, but there are other ones that
There-
have
yes,
to be
there are.
filled in by
Oh,
somebody
Oh, yeah,
that
okay.
has a max 2,000 character
sorry.
in terms of the scope of work. So, that can, without being too wordy, that can really get chewed up pretty fast.
Oh, sure.
So to speak. And I think it's also important to remember that we have two distinct grants. One, and the original expression of interest, which is not cast in stone and can be changed, for Route 9 was for $400,000 to do a help me out, you guys that are technical, geomorphical
Geotechnical.
evaluation.
Yeah, to do some, try and find a site, do some investigation.
find and qualify a site.
Yeah,
Okay, so I would guess, that's pretty much standard, what's involved with doing that, so you probably wouldn't have a problem, with sticking to the character limit. My question is, have you found that the character, if you've done these particular one-stop for growth applications, have you found this to be a restriction?
I have not in the previous ones that we've worked on. There are quite a few places, like you said, there are these places and a few near the end of the application where you have a little bit of freedom. It's not just checking a box, it's being able to write a paragraph. But we'll definitely be sure to make our sentences and bodies of writing concise. Definitely fit a lot of extra information in there.
Do we have the opportunity to provide addenda or
Yes.
appendices and that kind of stuff for these
Yes.
things too as well?
Yes, you can have attachments.
Okay, good. Excellent.
I think, so Claire mentioned, that, we put in 2 expressions of interest. And I think we ought to have a serious discussion about the second one, which is, we had, you're not gonna like this, Sam.
Which one's the second?
The second one was the $2 million for
downtown.
the downtown wastewater treatment
Mhm.
facility.
Right.
And, well, I'll let Claire.
Yeah,
describe it.
okay, so here's my question, to net it out. The original request was for $2 million to actually develop a, wastewater treatment site in the downtown area. I don't expect you folks to be, familiar with it. Rob Mushi was the one who worked on it. And there is a lot of potential there. I don't know. Have you actually worked with filling out these one-stop grants,
The
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
the application?
Yeah, she said she has.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of the development continuum, which is specifically said millions of times on the one-stop website. And I have watched all 5 webinars that they did talking about the development continuum. The reason that I'm bringing it up is it actually wants to know that the town has put in the steps that need to proceed doing an ask for $2 million. Okay, we have a downtown area which is pretty much limited to about a diameter of 1 mile. We currently have one proposed housing build out for 8 units. Okay, we refer to it as the downtown district. It's pretty poor. It really isn't. However, there is some potential there because we have a private developer, and that's one of the things that the state looks for. Sam mentioned, for example, they like regionalization. They also like when you have a developer to go in with you, who's going to fund part of this. Essentially, you're doing it as partners. Okay. The reason that I'm bringing this up is I looked at that, looking at the same template that you have up there. And I said, you know what? They're going to say the town is asking for $2 million. And right now, they don't have any commitment from a developer. They don't have any build out proposed plan, which is one of the other things that you can get a grant for. My personal opinion is we're putting the cart before the horse. And I think that's something that Weston and Sampson should take a look at in terms of, is this thing going to fly with what the state is looking for?
So Claire, I don't understand your point. What are you saying? We should not do the downtown?
We should do a downtown grant application, but it should not be what we previously put in.
What should it be?
Excuse me?
What should it be?
It should be one of the, and I have a couple other ones that I have listed here in terms of what they call the development continuum. And I have a slide that shows this. And it says some of the work that needs to be done as the steps to say, we have done steps 1, 2, 3, and 4 to show that now we are prepared to do the ask for the $2 million.
So we're not ready for the $2 million yet.
There you go. Yeah.
And
Oh, I don't think we were ready.
We're
to
not
ask for
ready.
that.
On the other hand.
I don't know all
That
the
was
details.
one of the, that was one of the,
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that.
I looked to
Like,
the
doesn't sound like
experts.
enough.
Yeah. I looked to the
Right.
experts for advice. You guys have done this, so, you ought to be able to advise us to say, yeah, you're right, we're not ready, or might as well ask for the full 2 and have them tell us that you're not ready yet. Also, the question is, do we ask for both Route 9 and downtown? We've talked about that. I'd be interested in your view on, which one you go for. I mean, Route 9 is much bigger. On the other hand, far more important to the town. If we never did downtown and did Route 9, we'd survive just fine.
Right.
The other way, we're still struggling. So,
Are we making it more complicated doing both of these simultaneously,
yeah,
No,
needlessly? I mean,
Yeah.
is it, when's the next, how often can you apply it? What's the timing of these?
every year. Anyway, a lot of
Once a
questions.
Once a year?
Yeah, I'd just like to add in a couple of thoughts. We just did pave downtown. That's number one. Number two, that CSX crossing appears to be somewhat of a monumental task to, come through and
Bill, you're fading, your audio is fading.
We lost your mic, Bill.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Still
It's
bad.
faint,
Yes. No.
a little better.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
There you go. That's better.
Thank you.
You're saying yes, Anna?
Yes.
You're good.
No, I'm not hearing you.
Now we
I
can
have to
hear
invest
you.
in a new headset. Anyways, what I was saying is CSX Railroad is a very difficult issue that bisects the downtown.
Yeah.
And makes it
You're fading
we're
out.
fading out again.
Lost you.
So just bear that in mind is my point.
Can't hear you.
Lost your audio.
I'll donate it.
Let's pass the hat for a new headphones, that's Bill.
somebody text him and just tell him,
Now you're muted.
So I'm not using his headset, change using his laptop mic.
Yeah,
You might not be in the
well,
environment.
his audio was off.
he's muted. It wasn't, but he's now muted. But get him back online here.
Anna, while okay. Oh, interesting, okay, so.
Okay.
Gives me another burden, okay.
So mentioned, okay. So that's another argument that downtown may be slower or less attainable.
Well, I think,
Because think of it this way. If you, and I put all this, if you had Tony Kwan going in along with this, okay? We know the plan that he had.
Yep.
Okay, and if he had the town working and we were working with him, now we have a plan
Yes, I agree.
that looks good to move forward. Right now, we don't have that.
yeah,
Is
the other
that
option.
Is that plant in physically?
Pardon?
Built, is this plant built?
Yes.
Yeah.
I went looking for it. I couldn't find it up there.
No, the wastewater part, the septic, the 80,000 gallon tank is.
But the
It's
treatment
underneath,
building?
it's underneath all the solar panels.
Oh, all right, I didn't look under.
Okay, but
Okay.
there's no
Yeah,
place for the stuff to go.
yeah. Oh, okay.
Discharge field.
If I can just pause for a sec, we should probably let Anna finish
Yeah,
going
yeah,
through her
yeah.
document
Yeah.
about the
Okay,
pieces
yeah.
we need
Yeah.
to kind of call out, who's gonna do what.
Yeah.
And then we can circle back saying, now that we know all this, what's most viable, or if they need to think about what's most viable, then tell us.
Yeah, what do they think about? all
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Cool. So,
Sounds
Anna,
good.
Janet,
Sorry, Anna.
No, it's all good information. The next point kind of hits on that. It was my understanding just from the feedback of the EOI that both projects were in the pre-development part of the continuum. That was what was suggested by the state. And going through next for the cost, is there any availability for matching funds for either of the design projects? As stated in the EOI, the most competitive awards would have some matching funds with them. So are you aware of any possibilities that we could have matching funds if the grant was awarded?
Yes, I think we would, if the grant was awarded, we actually are planning on a special town meeting late in the fall, sort of November-ish, where we could, and there are potential pools of money and free cash that are certified at that point that could be used to provide something like, say, a 25% match. And in fact, I think we would probably be planning on briefing the select board prior to submission, saying, that would be an expectation is that if we got the grant, we would have to come up with roughly 25% of the funds.
I think there's strong support from the select board. The budget is very tight as always, but again, it's something the select board has talked about and is interested in. So
So Anna, do you have to declare what you're willing to match at this point?
Yes, they do ask,
Okay. Yeah.
you add in your design fee and you show how much you're asking for the grant and how much anticipated matching funds, and then they do give you a little section to explain where the matching funds would come from.
it would be very helpful to have that number, at least ballpark numbers that we can talk to the select board about.
Yeah, so we'll get that on the next agenda and, because time's a wasting.
Yep.
Great. And they ask for just a project location map to show the area for each of the different projects. We have a lot of that information from existing feasibility studies, so we could pull a project location map from either of those. Next, there is a short section about what the public outreach would be for each of these projects, how you would let the public know kind of just what's going on with these projects. And MassWorks also does put an emphasis on any social or economically disadvantaged groups in the area. One of the projects, I believe the Route 9 project, is within a mile of an environmental justice community. So that could be something that we could put into this section. Do
Where,
you tip
where,
And where would that
where
be?
is that? Yeah,
the environmental justice?
yeah, yeah.
And
I'm
you
not
want to
sure
look at the map?
definition, but I don't think of.
Well, what's the name of it?
Yeah, or, yeah, just the, I don't
So,
think any of us here are aware, yeah.
Going through this quickly. Let's see what it is. So there's an environmental justice just section right here, asking
Yeah.
if it's located within a mile, and then you click on this page and it brings you to a map.
Oh,
RGS, okay.
And then they have a
I
little
don't
just
know where it is.
measuring tool. And a portion of the Route 9 project is within a mile of an environmental justice community. Even though it's not in Southborough, it's still within a mile.
Okay.
And on the other end there, we've actually got, looks like Northborough is qualifies in the west end of town there, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're
yeah.
surrounded by environmental justice.
The other
An oasis.
The other sort of the thing we might want to try and promote there is that at least, a big piece of the justification for doing this is to lessen the tax impact on the residents, in particular our senior community, which is we've been taxing pretty heavily lately.
Yeah, we are rapidly becoming a community where aging in place is no longer gonna be a viable option. And so, however, we wanna work language like that in there.
Yeah. And for any kind of public outreach program, do you have any scheduled events that you usually do? Do you usually post announcements for a project like this on certain sites? Would you have maybe a meeting where you'd send notifications out to residents informing them of the project, or is that language you'd like us to come up with and create a schedule for that?
When we've done things like this, we have done public outreach to senior groups, for example. We will typically have public hearings on the project. It's really the sort of things that you need to do to convince a town meeting to say yes.
For the MBTA communities, for example, we had a series of public forums that were reasonably well attended. We've got the Southborough Access Media, the public access video folks that we've got the ability to talk with. We've got, I guess, Facebook and Twitter accounts for the town that.
my Southborough,
Yeah.
A local,
everyone reads that.
local blog.
There's a local paper blog that seems to get updated every day or two that kind of covers everything going on in town.
So those are the usual mechanisms, so we can list those kinds of things as communication mechanisms.
Yeah.
Site information, they ask, even though this project is very horizontal and hits a lot of properties, they ask for a primary site address. So I think in the past, we've put, if there is a private developer, that's a big part of the project, that would have been the primary site address. So we would just have to identify that at some point going forward. Do you have any idea what would be really the focal point of either the Route 9 or the downtown area projects?
Bemis downtown, probably, right, Claire?
Yeah.
Yeah, we got that on Route 9. Maybe the EMC property.
Yeah,
What, the site information, I don't understand the question there. The site information regarding what?
The project.
Project.
The whole project?
well, you know, we could use, we could use
Route 9. It's
the golf course.
Oh, are they talking site of recharge or site of,
No.
or plant?
Like, if this is a project, if you were to post a, hey, send mail about this project.
Yeah, I would think, the only one you could really use is EMC
Yeah,
for this question.
and again, we're talking about 4 miles of Route 9 is the project on Route
I
9.
think these are all questions we just need to sit down
Yeah, we don't need
amongst
to solve the
ourselves
issues.
Yeah.
Going through the
and,
things that-
and
yeah.
get
Yeah.
hammered out.
I mean, they don't have to agree to it. We just have to put it, that's our primary. We want
Yeah,
help.
we have to see what's missing.
Yeah.
I mean, we can read the application.
Yeah.
And I've done it.
Okay,
Okay, let's keep going then.
Sounds good. And then they also, MassWorks also emphasize if there's any transit stations nearby, so if there's any bus stations, train stations, influencing travel. So that could be something as well that we could keep working on. And then the next section is about any community development tools that Southborough has, if the town is pursuing any of these different options.
The answer is probably
Oh,
no.
well, no, actually, the diff financing, I think, is one which we're going to have to give serious consideration to. In fact, I think we should give serious consideration to identifying a diff zone and begin accumulating, you know, funds from that to sort of pay for this whole program. So I think the district improvement financing is a definite.
Possibility.
Yeah.
We've talked to mass development folks about diff, but we have not done anything in terms of specific structure in place.
Yeah, but I think that's actually something, and in fact, maybe that should be part of this project, is
Part of the plan.
part of the plan, because I think the sooner we identify a diff zone, the sooner we can get it authorized and begin to accumulate funds, because we're gonna need a lot of money to build this thing. And this is at least a way to get enough money to get started until things start to flow, as they say.
yes, okay.
Yeah.
So we're on public development.
Mhm.
Public development,
Yeah, so
Is
the
it- is
next
that-
section, go ahead.
no, is that for new? In other words, this sewer would be for new development, or is it sewering existing like schools and things?
Yes, it's definitely an emphasis on new development. What development can come from the new infrastructure is what they're looking for.
No, we don't own much property for either of these sites, actually.
Well,
Yeah,
we own the golf course.
Or you're not gonna develop?
No,
No, so
no,
we just might not have much of an answer for this one.
Yeah,
yeah, this is about, increasing the value of private property
Yeah.
along Route 9 and.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so
taking our share.
you got nothing there.
Not
Yeah.
much.
And that's okay. You don't need to have public development as well. They just like you to break it up if there was public development versus private development.
Yeah.
For the timeline, they ask a few questions about that. Just going through the feasibility studies, I added that I think design status is about at 25%. That can be changed if you would prefer to put a different number there. And then
Generously.
the design
Yeah.
status after the grant would be at 100%, assuming that
Right.
we would get the full grant, have the full amount to do the project. And then same thing, the design completion anticipated date. This is also a moving target. I added it as June 2027, assuming we get the grant. Typically for MassWorks, if you are awarded the grant, you'll find out in the fall. And then you will sign a contract with them for the amount of money somewhere between January to June of the following year. So for this would be January to June of 2026. So an anticipated date, completion date of June 2027 would give about a year and a half for design. I'd recommend not putting any later than June 2028. They're looking for these pre-development
No, that-
projects to take about a year to 2 years.
That sounds pretty reasonable.
27.
Yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
Yeah,
And then this is a short answer section about anticipated construction timeline. So they're looking for when it would be anticipated to break ground and any possible other information we have on scheduling. So if you're able to maybe break ground right after design's over, or if there's a little time in between that you would need.
There's probably time in between. Some of the places where we would want to do geotesting, we probably want to do in the winter, particularly if it's a golf course. You know, when the golf course isn't being used for golf. But
Well, back to the, on the last one, the anticipated construction timeline, are they talking, the building of the plant and all the phases of the collection system? Or is it the first thing, the plant, and maybe phase one of a collection system? Or are they talking the whole project, you know, maybe, it seems like down in Cape Cod, these projects are 20 and 30 years.
yeah,
In phases.
no, I think,
What are they looking for?
I think the completion is the completion of the work for this phase,
But
which
it's not
is,
construction,
No,
it's all design.
Yeah.
No,
So,
it's-
Anna,
I
what do
think it's
you- what do
whatever
you
you're
guys think?
designing, and it can be years out, but whatever you're designing, when do you anticipate it would go to construction? And it would
Mhm.
lend itself to, finishing the design simultaneous with submitting an application for construction monies for MassWorks. If you get
Okay.
design monies, you're most likely gonna also be going for construction monies down the road. They're just looking for that crystal ball into the future of if
Yeah,
you
so
design
the-
this,
the
then what are you
picture
gonna
of
do
it.
with it?
we're
When construction
phase
begins.
one,
Yeah.
construction is phase 4.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
But they're looking for when construction begins here,
And that's
Yeah.
gonna be a plan.
not when it completes. Okay,
Bunch of pipes don't do any good without a plan.
we can do that.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay,
And then next, we already hit on this too. There's a section about private development information. They ask for you to put the primary private development, any information you have on that in there. And if there isn't a primary private development, they do have a short answer section to explain what else is proposed instead of having a specific development as part of this project.
we got that one.
yeah.
And then some attachments. We've always shown letters of support. The organization CEO that we identified has to submit a letter of support for the project, and we can send some draft language over for you to look at. And then a lot of times with our letters of support, we'll also list what boards, committees, important people of the town who are also going to support the project. So that's a good time to explain how important the project is to the town.
We can get a letter from all of those, I'm confident.
Yeah.
And developers, I could get like DePietri, Ferris, we get one from the Atlantic Group.
Yeah.
You're just saying they love this,
Those-
you know.
Letters of
definitely
support
any-
are huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, any of the private developers, that's great, as many as
I
those.
did
as you can.
mention this to our state rep. And
I was
she
gonna
said
say,
she'd
what
let us
about your
know as well.
legislators? Yeah.
Yep.
Those are the biggest. They're the ones that, when it's on the floor and they're discussing it, they go to your local rep and say, hey, this project's in your district. What do you think?
And I think they will be very supportive.
Is it all state reps or is it, is it like state legislators?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
KW,
like
yeah.
congressmen or something?
State.
State,
It's just all state.
yeah,
people.
state money.
No, I would like
Yeah.
McGovern or somebody, or who's our congressman here? Or US congressman?
I can't even remember. Far above my pay grade. I don't pay attention to
Yeah,
this.
so I think that this is, I think the state reps are really the ones.
Okay, all right.
I think it's better.
Not Catherine Clark, is it? She,
I think it's McGovern.
yeah, I think you're right.
Fine, we can figure it out later.
Yeah.
Okay, something like
Yeah.
that.
And then just the last thing I wanted to bring up is this is kind of new to the IGS portal, but it's not just the organization CEO who can fill out the application. You can also add primary contacts. So if it would be easiest for you for Weston and Sampson to fill out the IGX portal, we could do that.
Yeah, we have our assistant town administrator has done that previously, a woman named
Mhm.
Vanessa Hale. So again, I don't think we have strong preference as long as it gets done, so.
Okay,
Prefer to have them do it.
Get them to it, okay, that'd be even better if they would, yeah. So other than that, we're set. Fantastic.
I mean, the project's almost done at this point.
Yeah.
Now. This is great.
Book it, let's
you
go.
wanna mail it in tomorrow, Anna?
I'll move to adjourn.
So thank you for walking through the outline. Claire provided something similar before too, so it's good to know that there's lots of stuff to carve up or lots of stuff to enter. And so now, is that when do we now kind of go back through and say who's taking what, or were those the notes that you were taking during the process?
I was taking those notes. I
Okay.
can send this out in an email.
Yeah.
And I'll mark it up with what we've discussed for different people to split it up, and then we
Yep.
can have a discussion if anyone needs any additional support on any of their sections.
Okay, well, I think for me
That's
at
good.
least, bottom line is that Claire sends you guys what she's done
Yeah,
on the
Yeah, that would be
application.
great.
Certainly. And I'll send you the master plan. Bob and I talk about the impact stuff, see what we can come up with there. And we also ought to talk or think about the attachments that we want to attach here from, and you guys again have the prior work that was done, if any of that would be helpful.
Where the attachments part where we can kind of be a little bit persuasive, is that just limited to what is in those letters of support from other boards and committees? Or is there just another entire section where we can just stuff in it?
I mean, maybe, Alan, what
Just
we could do
general
is
attachments.
we could write a committee charge that would have a lot of this stuff in it that sets context and background.
Okay.
That you could put in a does that make sense?
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, I'll send you,
Yeah.
the couple of presentations that I've done, which sort of give a little more of the background.
Yours,
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
They just have to be referenced in that little, one of those boxes.
yeah,
No, not as an attachment though.
Oh, no, but it has to tell them.
Reference it, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, seems to me the attachments give us a chance to sort of tell our story about how we're, basically underserved here, and there's great opportunity, huge upside relative to our surrounding communities, et cetera. And at least get that story out there. I'm assuming these
Okay.
guys read that stuff.
The scoop on attachments, applicants may submit other attachments to support the application which may be reviewed or filed. However, please note that these items will generally not be scored or assessed as part of the formal evaluation of the proposal. One of the things I want to make sure that everybody understands is that when I was listening to those
Workshop, yeah.
workshops,
Yeah.
okay? They said, because of the volume of applications that they
Yeah,
had.
yeah.
They spend about a half hour.
Yeah.
If they spend a half hour on your application, you're heading in the right direction.
Well, but again, I don't think we expect that they're gonna do it, but I think you wanna make your best case in those attachments. And maybe
Right.
even in the application itself, say something. If you're only gonna read one, we suggest that you read this.
But my point is that has to be, that specific attachment or attachments has to be referenced in one of
Yes.
those 1,000-word
application.
boxes,
Yeah, in the
or
application,
2,000-word
yeah,
boxes.
Sure, yeah, we got that.
And they specifically, said that.
What else we got, guys?
Got a couple other items,
What time zone are you in, Anna? Hawaii?
No, that clock's not even. It's just a background.
Oh, so
He's in the next office.
It's been the same the whole time.
He's right through the wall behind me.
The meeting has not lasted any time, actually.
right, that's good, because
Actually,
they bill by the hour.
Billable hours, that's right.
5 hours is Hawaii.
Yeah.
You know, the palm tree.
She has no billable hours on this project. Perfect.
All right,
Okay.
yeah, I think we need to have it as two items. I think we do need to have a discussion about the scope of the downtown initiative and whether we want to, what we want to do there. And then, I'll give a quick report. I you guys all ditched me and left me to face the Conservation Commission alone.
I was there.
You know,
I
Claire
was
was
in the
there.
background, but
In case you needed help.
Yeah,
I didn't
and,
see, I watched the meeting.
and actually, we got a very positive reception. Primarily from Ben Smith, who's the assistant chair. He said, in fact, you know, that they had considered, you know, using the site, developing, alternative irrigation for the, golf course. And, they're going to be meeting with, the other holder of the, CR on the 28th, and they invited us to join them to, have that discussion. So, you know, I was, I expected a tougher time than I got.
Okay.
We haven't heard from the open space guys. I think they may have a different opinion, but we'll see.
Yes, but on the other hand, you know,
They're not.
doesn't
they're
the
not a
space
grantee.
stay
They're
open
not a
even though
grantee.
you're using it to drain underneath?
All right, does Stephen and Ann understand it? There's a golf course here, possible recharge area, but it's got all kinds of encumbrances with, you know, conservation restrictions. So if it were to be used, you gotta get past of, you know, our own conservation commission, but some,
Sudbury Valley trustees.
Sudbury Valley trustees.
That's two grantees.
So, that's in negotiation right now, or, you know, it's, informal discussions.
the conservation restriction does permit us to operate a golf course, and it does permit us to irrigate that golf course. And so,
What we're trying to figure out is, can we propose a new way of irrigating the golf course that doesn't violate any restrictions?
Yeah. but, you know,
But the language actually it can be easily read to allow for what we're talking about. And the focus is on restoring the golf course layout to its pre-construction condition. And if we're using the fairways for the recharge area, that's a pretty straightforward process. We're not cutting down the trees and all that kind of stuff and having to replace them. So
Let's say roughly 5 choices of recharge areas, this is one of them. And this was probably the original primary by the group here.
now the other thing I did was I looked at a couple of facilities, and you guys know a lot more about this than I do. But I looked at the one in Acton and one in Plymouth. And the plant sizes were nowhere near as big as I thought they might be for something that's on the scale we're thinking about. They were on the order of 1.5 acres. And Bill and I spent 15 minutes going around the DPW site, and there may be 1.5 acres of land on the DPW site that we could squeeze a plant into. Now that's.
Oh, you're talking the plant or the recharge?
The plant.
Plant, okay.
You know, and the nice thing about that is it's right in the middle of the, you know, it's close to the golf course, and it's,
Okay.
right on Route 9.
and it's essentially on Route 9.
Yeah.
And
And we own it.
It's not in somebody's backyard.
And it's not in somebody's backyard, which is,
It's in some backyards.
well, it's a backyard, one or two backyards, but it would mean probably relocating the
Recycle area.
recycling area. You know, the site, you know, is not expansive. It would be cozy, but it conceivably could be done. I made a bunch of 1.5 squares and started moving them around and, I wasn't able to convince myself this was a truly bad idea.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, which is unusual for my ideas. So, the third thing I think we really do need to talk about is what is the scope that we want to do on the downtown, or, is this a bridge too far for this route?
Yeah, in my very simple, and I have no technical engineering expertise. I look at it this way, we have one grant that we're looking for $400,000 to cover all of Route 9 for the geomorphological, whatever it is, study. Okay, that to me says that's a step, one of the steps that has to be done in order to eventually put in a wastewater treatment site. As we talk about this, my question then is, what would be something that we could do for downtown that scales back from $2 million that we could do on the order of setting up something in downtown, if there is going to be eventually a wastewater treatment site? So what would be one of the steps that leads up to that? That's an engineering question, right?
Well, I assume, do you have a site there? I mean, don't you need to do some of the same stuff? Site investigations, geotechnical information?
Yeah, and one of the things that was a recommendation when Rob did the downtown feasibility study was to locate a site downtown. Okay, so it would be to find out where it was. And the town has looked at several different sites in terms of what might be possible. So I guess maybe mentioning that, then it should be the same kind of thing. Take a look at the sites in downtown and see what's feasible for locating it there and what isn't feasible, I guess, more importantly.
But I think these guys really need to know there's an alternative possibility. That there's a developer downtown that was gonna build a very big project, but he owns the most significant buildings downtown. Quam owns all
Yeah.
that, Reliant. They're all commercial, like medical buildings and stuff. And he was gonna build a whole pile of retirement communities, and he's actually permitted a plant for 80,000 gallons. And for all his projects, but he never put a recharge area. in it.
I'm not sure.
It's not in use.
I got a note here to find out
So
exactly
here's
what's
a,
there.
right downtown, there's an 80,000 square foot plant built. Which I don't know how many gallons do you think the town needs? What was that number?
I think it was on the order of 12,000.
Yeah.
12,000. So it seems to me, and it's nothing to do with Weston and Sampson, because we're talking about this project, that we'd be much better off meeting with 20 Quam and working out, permits for his buildings in exchange for participation in his plant.
Yep.
And just run a pipe up and down Main Street and call it quits.
We have asked about that historically, and he was not eager to deal with us, but we haven't had to ask recently, so.
But there's a couple people I think that might know him.
Yeah, I reached out to Kathy and asked her to see if she could set something up. And, after election day, everybody's going a little crazy at the moment. But to press forward on that, I actually think you'd be quite important to, he has expressed concern about things like restaurants.
Types of business.
And I think, you've got experience in what might be done to pre-treat or to mitigate that. And Bob, I think, we meet with Tony, I think we want
I
to
love
be there.
that.
Yeah.
So, but that also then says, are we really distracting ourselves with downtown now when we're trying to do Route 9 this year? I know I just stepped in late and
No, I got the same question.
That's a very good
Sam,
question.
what do you think?
I guess I would look to Weston and Sampson for advice on that, to say, what do you think is most likely to be successful? Is pursuing downtown gonna harm our chances with Route 9? I mean, I think clear Route 9 is the highest priority for us, certainly, because that's where we get the development and real estate tax revenue. I can only have one. Route 9 is the clear choice, but if there's
We'd
no
like to
way
see
we're gonna
these
ever get Route 9.
Letters of interest that was submitted. and then we'll understand better what you're going for. I don't understand what you asked for on the second one. It sounds like you asked for construction money, or, you know.
Yeah,
And
so
so
we
we
had
have
a
to see what
meeting
it is
with,
you put in there, yeah.
we had a meeting with one of the other engineering firms who came in and suggested we do that, and I don't think we're ready
Okay,
to ask for construction money. But I know we're not ready to ask.
Yeah, we know it.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
ridiculous, actually.
You know, the most I think we could be ready for would be to ask for essentially money to do what we want to do on Route 9, but on a smaller scale.
yeah.
Yeah,
There's
I
gotta be
agree
a
with
clear
that.
definition of what the next step is and that you're ready to take that step, so. And you don't have to submit, you know, just because you submitted 2 letters of interest doesn't mean you have to follow through on each. So
Right.
if
But
we
did-
want to
I
focus
guess
it on one, that
Sam's-
might make more sense.
Sam's question was, do you think submitting 2 simultaneously, a little bit of competition amongst yourself with
Yeah.
them? That they're gonna say,
Yeah.
oh, we're gonna give Southborough one, but
Well, we know which one we want.
that's what I'm saying. If
Yeah,
if
no,
they both
there's
say
something to
that
that.
that's possibly, that, you know, they'll pick one and feel like they gave you something. Which one do you want to get?
Yeah, no, there's something to that. I mean, let us take a look at what you had already compiled so that we can
Yeah.
see what it looks like. And we can talk about that. We can advise on that.
Okay.
All right.
I have something for Alan.
All right, so just sort of going back over action items, did, I'll take the action item to talk to Mark and inform him that he is gonna be designated as our CEO. Claire's gonna give us, the feedback from the EOI and the, work that she's done. I've got the action item to send you, the materials that I've used for presentations. And then Sam and Bob are going to begin to draft the economic impact piece.
Claire's gonna send application stuff that she's done.
Yeah, and I'll take the action items to sort of, there were these 4 checklists that I don't think we qualify for, but since I'm gonna be talking to Mark anyway, I can follow up with it there.
I'll send master plan.
And yeah, and Sam will send the master plan.
Hannah's gonna send over her annotated outline based on
Yeah.
the meeting from today.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
That'll be good.
Claire, can I ask you to send everybody an email with everybody's email address, so we all have each other's email addresses, just so, yeah. All right,
Yeah, and Anna put ours in the chat too,
Yeah.
so.
I grabbed them.
Yeah.
But toward that end, I'm not sure what your guys' preferences are on, you know, how we're gonna exchange information back and forth, but we've got a short deadline. My own personal preference is not wanting to copy of a document to 12 people, and the 12 people make comments and gets it back to one person, and one person has to assimilate 12 versions of comments, so. I don't know if you guys use SharePoint, OneDrive, whatever, but whatever method you guys want to propose to make this as fast as we can possibly do it, is definitely amenable.
Okay,
Sounds
And
good. Yeah, we'll include that in our email.
And I'll take the action item to schedule a presentation to the select board at the next meeting, because we're gonna have to tell them that we're gonna ask for a 25% match.
Yep.
And
Bill, anything on
Hopefully
your
we
end
get 2
that we,
votes.
that you want to add in that we may have missed, or just a comment?
I think we've got it. I think let's summarize it
Yeah.
and get it distributed.
Can we talk about timing for the next few weeks here, because obviously a lot to get done. I mean, I would propose, aim for another group meeting, maybe next Monday evening,
I
and
think we
have,
need to do it Thursday night.
have, some offlines between then. Now and then.
No, I won't be around this Thursday night.
And so, yeah, I can schedule another meeting for
Schedule it.
a week from tonight. And, you know,
So,
Yeah, Monday's fine.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Not great for me in the evening.
Next Monday is good for me.
Yeah.
But,
Sam, I can meet with you during the day,
yeah,
so
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
schedule.
So Anna and I will be at a town meeting next Monday if you need us.
Mhm.
We won't be around on Monday. We're at
Mhm.
town meeting for another
Okay.
Mass Works project that we're trying to get approved.
Also, how about Friday?
Yeah, I can do Friday during the day,
Yeah,
We can
Friday
do-
night isn't really a big seller.
No.
but
Friday night, come on,
not a big
guys.
seller. We could do,
DJ,
Alan,
Sundays.
how would you feel about a lunch meeting on Friday?
Right now.
Some of these guys still work for.
I'm gonna be away still.
I
You
could
could
do one,
zoom in.
I could do lunch on
I'm
the
gonna
16th.
be in the
I
golf.
could do a new meeting on the 16th, that's what I'm saying.
16.
I didn't put.
Oh, we're never gonna get everybody, so
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
have to.
Let's make sure
shoot for
we communicate to the people who aren't here, so they know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Which is
And,
fine.
Right.
how about we
I only
put
found
out
about
two
this
alternatives and then figure out which
I
one
only
gets.
found out about this meeting by accident. Because I wasn't at the last meeting, when you guys decided to meet on Monday, so.
Okay. Oops.
Can we let these guys go home?
Well,
Yeah, can we let them go?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Let's talk about next meeting. Did we nail that
No,
down?
it's still
I
25
think-
to 3.
we tentatively said lunch on Friday, noon on Friday.
16.
For you in Hawaii, that you're gonna have to get up kind of early.
That's okay.
Time zone jokes aside, Friday at noon, is that an ample opportunity for you guys to make headway on the action items that are yours?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you tentatively say Friday at noon?
All right,
All right, anything else? Been very good.
All right.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you, guys.
so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
Thank
you
you.
working together.
Okay, have a good night now.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So are we done then?
I don't know, I don't have the agenda.
I think that's it.
We only have, there was just one action, one item on our agenda for today.
Well, I had
Well,
the,
no, there were a few.
It's this discussion.
Hold on.
no, we're gonna continue to discuss sites, which we kind of did, and
What is the GIS ability in Southborough? In other towns like Westboro, and I did the last stuff in Northborough and Shrewsbury, they had GIS person,
yeah,
and I could go in there and say, I want to get a plan of Route 9, and I want all the parcels and whatever, and they would do me custom maps up.
Nope.
And they charge me $5 a map or something.
I think Bill can do some of that.
Yeah, we're pretty good. We're pretty proficient at that.
Mostly just like a sessions map or GIS map. Just if we're gonna look up and down Route 9, we wanna be able to say, all right, we got 12 empty acres here.
Yeah.
If it's
So
industrial.
I'll
grazing,
send you
it's
the
this-
spreadsheet I did.
I know
Okay.
that when we did our MBTA communities meeting, there was several maps produced for that, so we definitely have the ability, I just don't know. who and how it
Okay, why
is.
don't I,
It sounds
if
like
you can
Bill
send
knows
us what you have.
Well,
It's
yeah, I'll
not-
send you the spreadsheet. It's,
Cool.
it's a little hen scratchy, but
Yeah, I
No,
think it
no,
was
that's
either
fine.
Yeah.
Karina or,
But we need to go and say, all right, this is a X number of square foot of building, and this is how many employees are in there, how many jobs will be created if they double the size. We're gonna have a hell of a story. This is gonna be a big developed town now. When we're done.
well, that's the plan. It's to.
I know there's something cooking at Atlantic, but is
Atlantic, yes.
that premature to? Not to talk to us, but
Premature to talk at this point.
yeah, for us, but it's too bad it might help this project.
They're still. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, but they're still trying. They're trying to digest what they bought and then
Yeah.
find somebody to sell it to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But they've got some exciting leads there. so.
Yeah,
okay. Are there any other items on our
What's on the
agenda?
agenda?
No.
Well, we could just take, I
discussion
agree with the
of
other ones, just taking their
details
vacant
of
sites
One-stop
and
application.
max out,
Yeah.
I don't feel
a
comfortable, but.
some type of commercial building or something on it.
Yeah.
And then just, that's the number of jobs.
Number 3 is discussion.
the other sort of potential plant site that I saw
We just talked about with Western
is
Assembly.
on Route 85 as
No,
you
I don't,
cross
not what I have to say.
Route 9 and off to the left. There's actually a little peninsula that goes out, and that could be another, there's enough room in there for a plant as well.
Is that
That's all.
DCR property?
Yeah, that's DCR property, and I don't know whether you know,
CR is hard to.
Yeah, I would think.
You mean off of White Bagley Road?
now it's on 85.
Oh,
And it's DCR property. I don't know whether that's good, bad, or indifferent, you know,
That's tougher than MassDOT, I think.
you think?
Hey, Bill, I have a question for you about property. When I looked at the map, if you are standing in front of the transfer station on 85, looking from the road in toward the transfer station, behind Eversource over there, there is a lot of property behind Eversource over to Middle Road that looks like it is undeveloped. I don't know, I was gonna look.
It's a
and see
big
who
hill,
owns that.
big rocky hill.
Who owns that?
It's Mount Victory.
Yeah, you're talking about Eversource's parcel or our parcel?
Not yours. Yours is to the right over there behind.
Yeah,
So
I haven't looked closely at Eversource.
over to the left, if Eversource owns that, I don't know who owns it. But if
I
Eversource
think
owns
they
it,
own it.
There's no, unfortunately, South Dakota has no old route.
might be an interesting question to ask. You don't think that's, the soils are,
Well,
Good back there.
it's very steep,
yeah,
and you know, it's Mount Vickery.
Yeah.
Such as that mountain is. But,
Hill Vickery.
Yeah, we'll look into it, Sam. I'll let you know.
Okay. But that was another open place there that just.
Yep.
Who knows?
Yeah, I'll send you the.
Yeah, you send it and
I'll
then,
send it and then I'll sit down with you and go over my,
and by hook or by crook, Sam and I, like, let's say a week from now, we'll have our whole.
Yeah. And I'm
section filled in.
generally available.
Million jobs.
And, yeah, it's gonna be
Billion dollar
unbelievable.
tax revenue.
So we're clear, a quorum for this committee is 4, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
So 3 of us could sit down and go through with it.
Okay.
Through it. Stay on the right side of the silly rules.
Of the law.
But I'll see Bill and make us some plans and.
Yeah.
Sketch them in.
All right.
do we have a contract with Western and Sampson for this?
Yeah,
Hope
we're in the process of working out the details. They had some minor edits to our boilerplate, so once we get that finalized, we'll have everybody sign it.
So
Should be set
the
though.
next question is, so we've talked, I guess my question is, do you think that based on what originally Weston and Sampson was told, what we were looking for, and now this kind of scaled back a little bit of approach that we talked about tonight? Is
talking
this gonna
downtown?
be adjustments?
I don't
Not
think
as-
so. I
not
think
as
the level
short.
of effort's gonna be the same, whether it's a,
Yeah.
$400,000 lift or a $2 million lift. The level of effort
Yeah.
input to the application forms, not much.
Yeah.
And what's the amount not to exceed? Were they the 5,000 or the
7,500?
7,500?
7450.
Oh.
It's short money.
Can we go back to this downtown?
Yeah,
This is my own opinion, okay?
yeah.
I think for the town to build a municipal sewer plant up there and sewer those properties, there are so few properties that can really be enhanced of any value. I don't care if they all doubled. It's not gonna pay for this plant and all the because, like we have the plant up there at Madison Place, it costs us $300,000 a year to operate that. Okay? You wouldn't believe the electric and gas bills, though, particularly electric bill. It's like $145,000 a year for the electric bill, because there's just a ton of pumps going all the time, big pumps. And then they're pushing the drip out there. Every time the tank fills up with 20,000 gallons, spreads it. So, and they hate, like Avalon Bay, I sold a couple big projects to back before I started building them, and they built one. They built like 3 in a time I was doing, and they built like 10 projects. Now they're the biggest ones in the Northeast. About 10, 15 years ago, they said they will never buy another project with a wastewater treatment plant because it's just so expensive to build, so expensive to operate. And it's the operating down the road that really, you don't like it. And eventually, all the parts got to get replaced. And they just said, forget it. If it's not sewer, we're not looking at the site.
Yeah.
And so I'm just saying, Pony Quam is a tremendous opportunity to put 12,000
Something.
and just put one pump station and grab it all and put it in there. if we could work something out.
Yeah.
But to going on your own for here, I just don't see any merit to it at all, not even
Okay.
close. The numbers, I can't believe.
There's a
I
reason
never-
you're on the committee, Bob, because you actually know that.
Why, I just don't think you could recover the money, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Bill's pretty quick on this one.
so Bill and I looked at this area in here.
Yeah.
And this is very steep, but yeah, this
That was what I was-
Eversource has a yard here.
Yeah.
But there's very little, I mean, it's wooded.
Yeah.
You know, and we can certainly,
Yeah,
Okay.
again, who knows?
I looked at the soil, and I think there's a lot of rock and big rock in there, but
Okay,
the soils on
in our property there.
on these properties are actually pretty good.
Mhm.
And there's some right in here as well, but
Yeah, who knows? Maybe there's possibilities to work out a deal with Eversource for access to some of it.
I mean, it's worth looking at.
Discharge,
I just see two
yeah.
nice little houses with long driveways and across the street.
yeah,
There are a couple of very active neighbors over there that be an interesting challenge maybe, but but anyway, good idea to
Yeah.
think about.
No, you can find something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm glad you found this, but I bet there's a few more little hidden gems,
yeah,
you know, that are just where nobody could care less what you do.
Yep, absolutely. But again, I think the Quan idea is a good one.
Yeah.
And we ought to pursue that.
Yeah.
I think that would be.
I mean, if it gets blown up, you said, no, I'm never doing anything with you guys.
Yeah, I
That's
just think
it.
we should really try to figure out what motivates them. because
Well,
I'm
to
not sure
me,
how-
it would be zoning and allowing to make money somehow up there.
yeah.
You know, maybe if you, I don't see what the harm in
Oh, no,
a senior or retirement community or something up there.
Yeah.
What harm is that to the town?
If you said you give them a senior retirement community, you're gonna feed another business, the medical center.
Medical
Yeah,
center.
there's yeah, you can have a shuttle bus. You
Go from the.
can have a golf cart.
Center
just-
to the assisted living.
Funeral homes that you like. It just
Production
seems so
line.
easy to me.
Paul Pazinski had worked with him a lot, so he knew
Yeah.
Tony's whole plan.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that, you know,
Well, Kathy has talked with him.
what's that?
Kathy Cook has talked with him fairly
Yes,
recently.
no, I know,
So
when
think
he
that-
came back from
that's
China.
the way it
Yeah.
is, so.
so,
Good.
yeah, we'll continue to,
But how does that, I don't, on the next, like, I know you've worked a lot up there. I still also, because I'm new on this committee, why are we asking for $400,000 when we don't even know anything about what we're doing up there? That seems like a lot of money to ask for.
Well, I think it soon, maybe at our next meeting, we make a call on do we keep going with that or not?
No, I would have thought
Records
we
for
were.
Route 9.
No?
The 2 million was for downtown,
Oh,
you're
I'm
right.
sorry, the 2 million.
Yeah, no, you're right.
But right now, we just really need more study money up there, I guess, right?
No, we studied that to
Yeah.
death.
Oh, you studied it to that.
Well, you know,
already?
ideally, I would think if you could just put, you know, on School Street where St. Mark's have their wastewater treatment
Yeah,
location.
Yeah.
So you have that one, there's town land up there,
stump dump.
Yeah.
right?
There's actually there's the stump dump. Which is,
I didn't know we had.
Bill knows where it is. It's actually, it's behind the St. Mark's garages.
Right, yeah,
But
so,
no tracks.
you know, you could
They're
treat
running.
that and then put it down to the golf course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
But
might be
if-
more
That's a
feasible,
tough
actually.
site.
Right.
That's a tough
Yeah.
site.
You know, that's so close.
Yeah. Now, are you still using that as a dump site, Bill?
As a temporary storage, I wouldn't call it a dump site per se, but my understanding is just based on the history that it probably wouldn't be a viable site for something like this.
Can't you make it viable?
Well,
I mean, you know, if,
I've been back there and it's,
That's you don't want to mess with that, I don't think.
We talked about-
that may be
You
a
know, the-
place you don't want to dig.
Yeah,
too
we're talking
much.
like
Yeah.
21E contamination or.
Yeah. I mean, there is the National Grid property behind.
Yeah.
And they have
Yeah.
a salon up there. That's 1.67 acres. And, you know, you can't put a lot of stuff on that potentially.
But in reality, all these plants and stuff. You only need an acre and a half. But really, you want like 15 acres, you know, like
Around
you
it,
really
yeah.
want to leave the trees around it.
Yep,
and
yep.
not have anybody see what goes on or smells it or whatever.
See,
You
here,
know,
here's-
ideally, I'm
Yeah,
just saying.
no, I agree. You know,
It's
that's
not like you're building a house, we're gonna put 2 houses on that acre and a half.
You're looking for
And before we
problems.
can put a treatment plant.
you know, all of that Park Street
Give us some
property
numbers, St.
that's
Mark's.
owned by Peter Spacey.
Yeah.
Someday that could be developed.
Yeah, but not soon, probably.
No.
Are we
but-
still on,
but
Greg?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
haven't
yeah,
closed
yeah.
the meeting out.
Yeah.
Meetings.
We have to make sure are we all done with what was on the agenda?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, we're-
we're, well,
Yeah.
part of the agenda was discussing sites.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
This is
that's
perfectly
okay.
appropriate discussion.
My engineer says that Park Central is very, very difficult perks up there.
Yeah,
You know, tons of wetlands and lots
Yeah.
of difficult perks.
yeah, it looks like that when I looked at the soils maps, it's kind of
Even though there's
spotty.
a lot of land, you see a lot of land,
Yeah,
but there's a reason that Flatley never built up there, I think.
okay, so we are tentatively on for Friday at lunch.
And you will alert Mr. Shea.
Yeah, I'll alert everybody and,
Is that one gonna be Zoom only?
yeah, that'll be a Zoom meeting.
Okay.
And, I think we all have our action items, so I will press forward. All right, so is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Bye, Bill.
Have a good one.
Thanks.